Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another ship fitting guide for EVE Echoes. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at one of the Tech 8 attack battlecruisers, the Caldari Naga. Now, attack battlecruisers are essentially the competition of who can fit the biggest gun to the smallest ship, and the Naga is the Caldari's entry into that competition, and oh my goodness, this is a very powerful ship, as we'll see later. So what I'm going to do in this video basically is unpack what this ship is, what it does, we'll look at its attributes, its fittings and its bonuses, all that jazz, then we'll have a look at actually how to fit this before taking it out and showcasing it in action. If you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting like on it, subscribe to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, ding that notification bell to make sure you never miss a video, and of course let me know in the comment section down below which ships you want to see me cover in future content. If you do want to go the extra mile to help support this channel, you can do so by joining us on Patreon, and huzzah, I now have merchandise available for purchase as well. I'll put a link on screen and in the description for that as well. If you've ever fancied rocking a Catskull Academy t-shirt, or like even a pillow or a notebook, congratulations, you now can. Very excited by that development. I hope you guys enjoy the stuff, and if you do want to grab some, it's all there. I'm going to look into getting a promo code for it as well, but I think you can get 10% off your first purchase anyway via Redbubble. Very cool website, one I've been using for years for all kinds of t-shirts and that I buy myself. Most of my wardrobe, in all fairness, is from Redbubble. Anyway, that all said and done then, let's jump into talking about the Caldari Naga. The Naga is the Caldari State's Tech 8 attack battlecruiser, so if we head into the Caldari State ship tree, climb the battlecruiser line to tech level 8, here is the Naga. Cool looking design, very rugged, very straight edged, and I do like that split hull design. I'm always a fan of this kind of ship design, whether it's the Rifter, the Megathron, or the Naga. I just like split hulls, I don't know why. Anyway, attributes and fittings here of the Naga. We've got one drone tube that can launch either small or medium drones. This is used as supplemental damage on anything that happens to get close, mainly frigates, destroyers, that kind of thing. Just something that may happen to get under your guns. A little bit of extra damage to take those out. The main amount of damage, of course, is going to come from those 6 high slots. There's a lot of cannons that you can fit onto this thing. 3 mid slots, 5 low slots, 3 power grid rigs, and 3 mechanical rigs. We've also got a very large power grid, 1024 megawatts. That's actually probably more than the Naga deserves to have, but hey, we'll come to that later on. Speaking of things that are probably bigger than the Naga actually needs, it's got a defense here of 25,901. That's middling for a Caldari battlecruiser. Very powerful, surprisingly tanky, especially since this ship is one we're not actually expecting to get hit. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself, we'll talk about that more later, but very strong defense here, 9,324 shields, 6,294 on armor, 6,390 on structure. That shield is massive, and even then the armor and the structure still take a fair amount of pummeling before your ship explodes. A lot of armor, a lot of structure, massive shields makes for a very tanky battlecruiser, especially since, as I said, we're not intending to get hit. Now, when I say we're not intending to get hit, I know that usually conjures up the image of speed tanking. Hopefully you can see that with a flight velocity of 168 meters per second and a whopping signature radius of 258, speed tanking is out of the question here. Heck, a battleship fitted with large strike cannons is going to have no issues hitting a Naga if it's in range. And that's kind of where we're coming to here. Let's have a look at the trait description, because this roll bonus is what makes the Naga an attack battlecruiser. 95% reduction to the large railgun power grid need. That means if you only pay 5% of the amount of power grid required to fit large railguns to the Naga. So, of course, that's what we're going to do. And a 50% reduction to large railgun capacity need, so you don't have to spend as much to fire them either. Basically, as I said, this is who can fit the biggest gun onto the smallest ship competition. We are running large railguns on this. If you haven't already figured that out, well, I don't know what to say. Now, of course, we've got the other skills here as well. Advanced Battlecruiser Engineering gives us a 5% increase to large railgun damage and a 5% increase to large railgun optimal range. Obviously, at full training of 5 there, that's 25% additional damage and 25% additional optimal range. Extra range, extra damage. I'm sure you can see where we're going with this, but hey. Advanced Battlecruiser Command then gives us a 5% increase to flight velocity, makes us a bit more nimble around the battlefield, and a 4% reduction to signature radius. So if you've got Advanced Battlecruiser Command bonus per level to level 5, that's a 20% smaller signature radius than we had before, and a 25% increase to flight velocity. makes it a little bit nimble, and makes it a little bit harder to hit, because we're going to be taking 20% off that 258, which takes us down to, I think, about 220, somewhere around that 220, 225. It's not a huge amount, but it does reduce it and makes it that little bit harder to hit. Of course then, we are going for a long-range kiting sniper fit. If you hadn't guessed already from me talking about the fact that we're using large rifled railguns, we're going to be using long ranges, that kind of thing. Yes, of course, the high slots here are 6 large rifled railguns. Large because we can fit them, we can afford to fit them. Rifled railguns because we're getting bonuses to range, and this allows us to kite and do some absolutely monstrous damage from some truly insane ranges. You can see here the DPS of these rifled railguns is 181 per turret. That is utterly monstrous, and we can do that from 70.71 kilometers optimal range with an accuracy fall off of 33.43. Now, of course, optimal plus accuracy fall off is where you're about 50% effective. In this case, this means that if you're sitting at 100 kilometers away from your target, you are better than 50% effective. And you can see here that the DPS from those turrets is a total of 1,085, meaning 100 kilometers, you're doing about 550 to 600 DPS. That is utterly mad. But their downside, obviously, to large rifled railguns is the fact they have a tracking speed of 2.46. That is abysmal. Anything gets like close to you, you are going to struggle to hit it. Smaller, faster moving ships like interceptors, that kind of thing, are going to be problematic with this fit. So absolutely, you need to prioritize those as your #1 target. You warp in at range, you see the small ships, you blap them before they become a threat. We do, however, have some mid-slots to help assist with that. I've equipped 2 Halley target painters here. Now again, you'll see they've got a decent optimal range of 36, a very long accuracy fall-off of 90 kilometers, which means we're 50% effective at about 126 kilometers, meaning if we're sitting at that 100 kilometer mark, again, we are more than 50% effective here, 38.75% signature radius adjustment. You're probably getting about 20% signature radius increase from 100 kilometers away. With 2 of these fitted, that means you can target things like those interceptors, those faster moving frigates, and you can blap those comfortably from extreme range. If something does get close, we've got a Predator status webifier to slow it right down, 61%. Obviously, this isn't overly reliable. You want to kill things before they hit that 14.8 kilometer optimal range. If it hits that point and you need to webify it, chances are your drone is going to be the only thing that can actually hit that target. And, well, you need to kind of evaluate in that situation, is the drone going to be able to take this out alone, or am I going to need to warp out of this anomaly, turn around, warp back in at range, and blap that target from a distance again? Something to seriously consider. It means that in this case, I've gone for obviously a Mark 7 Vespa, but whichever drone you have lying around it's going to be good enough. You're not really relying on your drones at all here. The aim is to kill anything before your drone is actually within range to engage it anyway. Now, in order to kill things from range, this means we've gone for 2 Eagle tracking computers. Now, what these do is they increase the optimal range of your turrets, they increase the accuracy fall-off of your turrets, and they increase the tracking speed of your turrets. That's cold for having these fitted. If you then activate it, you get a 500% increase to all of those bonuses, which makes for some absolutely terrifying ranges and makes your tracking speed manageable. Again, this means that theoretically, if something happens to get close enough to webify, if you webify it, hit it with both target painters, activate both the tracking computers for that tracking speed adjustment boost, you might be able to hit it. Try it. If it doesn't work, that is when you're going to need to warp out. And obviously this means you need to be very careful of any targets that are using things like warp scramblers, because you may have a difficulty actually hitting that ship and destroying it to allow yourself to fly off freely. Now again, we've got 2 of those fitted there. We could go for a third. Stacking 3 of them does start to get into module stacking penalty, so I've gone for a Corellum C-type magnetic field stabilizer. The thought process here is that if I can hit it at range with enough damage, then it's going to be blapped before it becomes a serious threat to me. And if I can increase the amount of damage I can do at that range, well, it's just going to be blapped that little bit faster. Ultimately, when you're looking at a kiting or sniper fit, the first thing you look at is range. The second thing you look at is the ability to control that range, and the third thing you look at is the damage, so you can do as much damage as possible over that range. tank forms a final point, and that's why on this fit you do not see a shield booster or a shield extender, because the aim is not to get hit in the first place. And honestly, through testing, I haven't had the need to even switch on a shield booster yet. Genuinely, this is how amazing this ship is at sniping. As part of that range control aspect though of kiting, here I've gone for a Gisdom C-type medium micro warp drive. Yes, okay, this does chew into our capacitor and makes it very difficult to get this ship capacitor stable. You don't need it to be capacitor stable in all fairness, because you're not going to ever be running everything all at once, but I do like to stay as close to capacitor stable as possible in PvE, and you'll see that when we come to the rigs in a moment, that does give kind of a the fit I've gone for is very expensive, but you can make it cheaper if you want, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To help with that capacitor stability, a GIST C-type large capacitor battery. Of course, it's a large one here. You can fit it onto that power grid. If I were actually to take this off the power grid, you'll see that the standard fit here... Oh, wrong one. Put the computer back on. If I were to take this, the battery off the fit, that's where we are. As I said earlier, the power grid on this ship is probably bigger than it ever needs to be. 672 is what the basic fit there's using, out of 1536, thanks to me having battlecruiser engineering. Anyway, let's put that battery back in. There we go. Yeah, you can see I have been trying it with the shield to see if the shield was necessary. I genuinely didn't put it on, so I've gone for capacitor stability instead. Now for the low slots here, sorry, for the rigs here, the mechanical rigs, I've gone for 3 semiconductor memory cells. You don't actually need these to be Mark III, I just happen to have 3 of them for this fit given to me. So fitting those through on, it's very expensive, but it does make us completely capacitor stable. Again, the aim doesn't necessarily have to be complete capacitor stability. You can go for just understanding that you're going to have to modulate your cycles and work out what you're going to be doing, that kind of thing. You can also go for here, this is one of the ships that will benefit from having a scan resolution increase, so that it can lock onto targets a little bit faster as they're approaching. Even things like the polycarbon engine housing, sorry, not polycarbon engine housing, dynamic fuel valve. Dynamic fuel valve reducing the cost of you actually activating your micro warp drive. That's also a very useful skill to have here. Now, for the combat rigs, I've gone for 1 collision accelerator and 2 burst aerators. These are, of course, the best way to get maximum DPS. You're gonna because of this because of the rig stacking penalty. If you put on 2 burst aerators, the second one isn't as good as the first one. If you put on 2 collision, the second isn't as good as the first one. That means the best thing to do to start off with is 1 collision, 1 burst. But then you need to decide whether you want a second burst or a second collision. In this case, the second burst works out as better DPS. That said as well, you can also go for a metastasis adjuster to give yourself even longer range with those guns. Personally, I find that the damage I'm doing at the ranges that I currently have is sufficient, but if you absolutely want to get an even more extreme range, you can swap the second burst aerator for a metastasis adjuster to get that additional accuracy fall off. To showcase the Naga in PvE, I'm jumping into Shameful Quaif Robbery at about 100 kilometers away from the access point. This is one of the Tech 9 missions, Tech 9 encounters. I think it's about 7.5 million you get as a reward for this one. I just want to showcase how this works at range. Obviously this does do Tech 10 anomalies as well, and you can do some of the storyline encounters, I just didn't have any to hand. So we're going to get into range here, we're going to look at our targets. Straight away I know that that robber is going to be a problem, as are, sorry, the Quaif robber catalyst is going to be a problem, as are the 2 smaller targets there, the Nemesis. Sorry, I couldn't think of what they were. So we're going to lock on to the Quaif robber catalyst, and we're going to take that one out first. You see, we don't even need to worry about speed tanking or orbiting or anything. We're just going to shoot these at range. You can see that one's coming closer. We're now going to move on to the Nemesis here. So this first shot here doesn't have the signature radius bloom because obviously we haven't got the target paint to go across yet. It's still able to hit because of how far away they are. Means we're going to take another shot here. Hopefully this will be not quite enough to go down in 2 hits. Third shot will do it. There we are, we swap now onto the second Nemesis. I'm also going to activate one of the targeting computers just to have a look at how that affects range here. And you see, oh yeah, optimal range with 1 computer active goes to 102, accuracy fall off sits at 47 from that point. That again is monstrous. We're going to activate I almost said heatsink, magnetic field stabilizer, and the other tracking computer to take out this Celestis from a distance. There we go, Celestis Covert Ops. Another one I know a lot of you guys are asking for a video on. I do have one, I just need to fit it and play with it. But there we are. We are hitting comfortably here, 106 kilometers away, 105 kilometers, and doing a decent whack of damage. Hopefully that'll go down any second now. For the Talos here, I am going to approach to the 100 kilometer mark, and I'm going to activate the micro warp drive for one activation. There we go, switch it on and immediately switch it back off again. Ultimately, you'll see here that capacitor hasn't dropped below 80% really. This is because I'm not having everything active at once. And remember, capacitor stability as of the fitting screen is based on what is having everything running at once. This obviously is a kind of build where we don't have everything running at once. We only activate modules as we need them. In fact, heck, let's put that battery on now just to shoot above the 100% and let my natural capacitor recharge underneath. Because in a moment, I'm going to activate both of those targeting computers and the magnetic field stabilizer, and then we're going to open the fitting menu just to see what range and what kind of DPS we're actually achieving with everything active there. But we are slowly going to be taking down, which one are we on here? It's the Talos 2. Talos 2 is going down fairly slowly. Obviously, it is a powerful Tech 9 battlecruiser. It's kind of it's an upgrade of the, you get the Naga and the Naga 2. You get the Talos is the Caldari Attack Cruiser. Then you get the Naga 2 on top. Okay, we've got 4 seconds, 3 seconds on the magnetic field stabilizer, and let's activate everything. So first of all, our turrets are now 129 kilometers, 59.13 kilometer accuracy fall off. That means this thing can hit from over 200. And what is our overall DPS? 1425. Oh, sorry, that's just hilarious to me. That is an insane amount of damage. And again, you can see why I haven't bothered putting any form of tank on this ship. Because, yeah, I've taken a tiny amount of damage. Turrets can theoretically hit at this kind of range on some of these ships. They just don't do it particularly well. So I've barely taken any damage at all, whilst just casually sitting here, parked in an anomaly, hitting with large rifled railguns. That, to me, is just what the Naga is all about. It's full on, sit at range and broadside them to death before they get anywhere close. I think the AI here on this Megatron is actually at the point where it hasn't really clicked onto me as a full-on threat, so it's not approaching. You can see they're 102 kilometers away, and it doesn't appear to actually be actively attempting to approach. Certainly not with a micro warp drive or an afterburner or anything. It's just drifting on inertia. 101 kilometers. There we go. Slow and steady. Let's activate one of those computers just so this is now not in accuracy fall off but in optimal range. You'll see the damage there increases 3,423 for a hit. Most of the ships I use on my main character, 4,135, would actually disappear in a puff of smoke underneath this. That is more DPS than many of my frigates have health. So that's just monstrous. That's just monstrous. Anyway, I think this really does showcase quite nicely how effective the Naga can be at this strategy. This is one of those ships that you can just AFK an entire anomaly, basically, as long as you have the target shift on. And as long as you take out the small, fast-moving targets first, you have absolutely nothing to worry about in regards to the bigger ones, just because they do nothing. They do nothing. The big ships, they do nothing. And 3,320. I've taken nothing. My shields are pretty much on 100%. Not taking any hits. I'm above 70% capacitor despite activating modules and all this kind of thing here. It's just, I don't know. As far as battlecruisers go, the Naga is very much up there in my battlecruiser playstyle. I'm not a big fan of the slow heavy ships, as you know, but one that I can just park at this kind of range and hit you from that insane amount of distance, yeah, that's something I'm down with. I'm down with this. Anyway, folks, that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to say here about the Naga. This is an awesome ship. I love how it looks. I love how it plays. You get a real AFK monster here that just does insane damage at some truly extraordinary ranges. Let me know what you think, though. Do you fit yours a little bit differently? Have you got a slightly different approach to the Naga? Have I missed something absolutely heinous that you're never going to forgive me for in the comment section? Let me know down below. Otherwise, folks, thank you for watching right the way to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.